There's not necessarily just one linear path for each person.
Right.
I think that's very important, that individualized plan. One, it helps the company, obviously, but two, for each of our teammates, they're not capped per se on the ability for them to keep growing. We want them to grow with us.
Yep.
Um, Two, the bringing the next generation along. That is a huge, huge focus. It has been, will continue to be. We are connected with a multitude of organizations, including vocational schools, to your post-secondary educations, to even just our partners within the workforce industry that are doing, second chance careers, or even looking outside the box. We are extremely connected, and as a second chance employer, we believe in that and always have and always will.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. Today I have Jesika Young. She's the owner of SimTech Machine. They took over. She was actually an investment banker. And so I think there's some interesting things we can chat about today, kind of some of her expertise from the banking space, from the finance industry, and how she's applied it inside of this business. They've done an excellent job of building a work culture there that is really focused on productivity, teamwork. In fact, Jesika doesn't refer to herself as the owner. She refers to herself as a team member, which I thought was an interesting thing. But they're running extremely successful machining, fabrication, and some other ancillary services business. And I think it's going to be really cool to figure out how they've done so well. So welcome to Manufacturing Insiders, Jesika.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to share the magic of our SimTech team.
Yes, awesome. So tell me first about kind of your prior experience and how it came to be that you decided to purchase a manufacturing facility.
Sure. So our career path, myself and my husband, is not one that's necessarily very linear. So as you mentioned in the intro, Nate, I was a retired commercial banker, or some may say recovering commercial banker, and even into that role, I became a accidental banker, if you will. That certainly wasn't what I had set out to do. But in that, I had the opportunity to work with a multitude of manufacturers, and just really knew at the heart of it that manufacturing is an industry that's not going to go anywhere. You, of course, may change what you're manufacturing, but everything that you do or touch as a consumer comes from a manufacturer. And so that being said, my husband Jared and I, we always knew we wanted something of our own, and went down a multitude of paths, whether that was franchising, consulting, or even truly looking at starting something up on our own. When we had the opportunity to sit with private placement back in October of 2017. Truly, at that moment, all the stars were very much aligning. And both my husband, Jared, who was in industrial overhead crane sales, myself as a banker, had went through several acquisitions, both being the acquired and the acquiring entities. And so when we had the opportunity to sit for private placement with Cimtech, a then 43-year-old manufacturing company, there were certainly things that we were looking for in making that strategic purchase. But more specifically, what we were looking at was the fact that it was a 43-year-old manufacturing company. It had excellent foundation. It had excellent reputation within the marketplace, serving customers across a myriad of industries and across the United States. And more specifically, it had a average tenure of 20 years. And that was with Jared and I bringing that average tenure down.
Oh, wow.
So just at the core of who Cimtech was at the time, and who Cimtech is now after celebrating 50 years of manufacturing excellence. That is really what led us down that pathway of jumping headfirst and making those moves from industrial overhead crane sales and commercial banking. Oftentimes people ask us, well, what the hell do you two bring to the table in a manufacturing company? It wasn't something that we grew up in the sense of growing up inside of the organization itself, but it was in fact the industry that we did grow up in. Our fathers were both tradesmen, and we knew the importance of manufacturing and the importance of everybody's role as a manufacturing company, and the impact that it made globally and to the families in which they would employed. So
Hmm.
that's really how we kind of came to the table, if you will,
Yeah.
the private placement table
Yeah.
of purchasing SimTech.
Okay. And I would assume you reflect back on that decision as a good one.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It was funny.
Yeah.
As a commercial banker, especially within this area, I actually called on SimTech, as did Jared in the overhead crane industry. And so, what was really spectacular, and I actually do recall this, and Jared brought it up just recently, when I had called on SimTech back in 2015 into 2016. I was pregnant with our youngest at the time, so waddled in there and was talking to the at the time owner, and I left that meeting, got in the car, and called Jared and said, "This is exactly what I want to do. Like this is
Hmm.
exactly what we talked about." And so you say like the stars aligned, I mean, we were obviously a few years off as far as getting the opportunity to sit for private placement, but just reflecting back on that, reflecting back on how cool it is to wear this logo that we had certainly admired, both in our respective industries at the time, and now we're part of that. It's pretty neat.
That's awesome. So I want to understand, from the investment side of things, from your previous experience in finance, what are some things that you looked at that maybe the average person wouldn't when they're looking at a company? What are some of those metrics? I guess, how did you analyze this purchase?
Well, I think at the core of it, and with the financing background, I think you're always going to have those standard metrics that you're looking at
Yep.
and looking for. And honestly, I mean, the largest one being contingent upon how much is the current ownership impact or drive the potential revenue, um, and um you the the fact that it was able to cash flow and sustain the potential debt coming into it from an acquisition standpoint. So I think that's kind of the first brush at what you looked at from a financial standpoint. But I honestly think, Nate, what sets Jared and I apart in our acquisitions, and now we have actually made two additional acquisitions of two other manufacturing companies for a total of three in this short 7.5 year run,
Oh.
is that we look at it from a vision standpoint. What is the purpose and where are we going with that? So what is the purpose and our priorities in looking to acquire and add to our capabilities, as well as the industry knowledge that it has? So it's not necessarily something that was quantifiable. It was definitely something that, from a visionary standpoint, how can each piece of this puzzle make sense?
Hmm.
Um, and so when we purchased SimTech, again, at 43-year-old manufacturing company, as I mentioned, it had a great reputation, great bones, if you will, and a great foundation, really built, that we knew that we could take it further than that,
Hmm.
in what we call building that manufacturing empire.
Yep. Yeah, and I know some of the really common red flags that you see when you're looking at buying a manufacturing company is the one you already mentioned, where the owner has way too big of a role and you would need to figure out how to keep him on somehow or whatnot. But so it sounds like that wasn't as much of a concern for you. But then there's also kind of the idea, which a lot of manufacturers in this position, where they're too reliant on one or two big customers and their cash flow might look great, but it's like, oh, you lose one or two, one of those guys, all of a sudden the business isn't looking so hot. So were there any other intangible variables that were either red flags or really positive?
Well, you nailed the one, and certainly as a banker, you don't want to be saturated into one industry or one customer.
Right.
At time of acquisition, we SimTech was poised pretty heavily with one within one industry, and so the goal was never to lose that industry. In fact, it was to grow, but that meant we needed to diversify the rest of our portfolio and book of business, which truly led to acquisition 2 and 3 of the additional entities.
I see.
Um, Other red flags, if you will, that you look for or look to avoid
Hmm.
is growing too fast, too. As a banker, I did see that often in industry and not having processes or parameters set in place to really pull those rings back in,
Hmm.
meaning, are you set up for scalable growth? And so Jared and I had put a huge emphasis on not outpacing ourselves more than 25% year over year. And that was with intent. That intent was to make sure that we certainly didn't overpromise and underdeliver for our existing customers or our new customers that we were onboarding, and that we didn't burn our team out. So steady growth is something that even post acquisition is very, very important. And then you think too from a financing standpoint, the injection of capital, and what does that look like to pace with your growth? What does it look like to have the parameters in place, whether that's line of credits? Because within manufacturing, as you know, the finance gap can look and vary amongst industries. You've got people that are pushing out your terms, past 120 days, specifically in automotive.
Hmm.
To what are ways to strategize to offset that and to
Right.
to limit that finance gap?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing that you had to kind of tighten the reins beyond 25% growth. A lot of machine shops, fabrication shops out there would they'd do anything for 25% growth. So what I mean, it's what was your marketing strategy? How were you able to get this much new business in the door?
Well, I mean, again, the reputation certainly is a huge variable in it, because we can prove the fact that we hang our hat on the precision and the quality of work that we have. A lot of our customers have been our customers since 1978, 1985, respectively. And so, how do you look to keep those customers, grow those customers, and then look for other customers that will fit within your established parameters? And
Hmm.
so the first thing that we did was really take a look back, and because looking at our capabilities, we truly can be everything to everyone, but that's not what we want to do. So what are we really good at, and what is kind of our sales funnel or our focus? And so in doing so, we established and reestablished what is our vision, what is our mission, what are our core values, and then looking at our prospect funnel, who aligns with that. And that really is, it's okay to say no.
Hmm.
And I think actually embracing that aspect of it's okay to say no. We don't have to take on everything. Let's be very strategic on what we take on. What
Hmm.
are the things that we're really good at? That's been really ultimately the overarching marketing plan that's been in place for us.
I see. So, so kind of flowing from the mission, value statement, things like that. How would you describe the mission statement or the company values?
Sure. So we are a manufacturer that manufacturers rely on, whether that is through support of their production, or actually contributing to their production of their products. So you look at that both directly and indirectly. Once that is established on how do we fit within their puzzle, or within their overarching goals, then it gets down to our core values, which is, of course, safety first, being that we are in manufacturing,
Hmm.
and that includes health and safety. As you know, we've seen through the pandemic from a health perspective, mental health is also a large portion of that. Then you look at the quality of work, whether that is actually precision machining, fabrication, or the quality of work being done behind a computer. We stand behind the quality of work that we do. We do work that matters, and it's quality work. We're doing it right the first time.
Hmm.
And then thirdly, and arguably most importantly, it's being a good team member. And what does that mean? That's being dependable, accountable, being coachable, and showing initiative. And when we find our partners and our customers align with those core values, you have really the sky's the limit, because the beauty and the magic that happen in manufacturing is the collaboration. We're bringing within our four walls over 750 years of experience through engineering, machining, fabrication. We're bringing that to the table so that we're able to work with our partners and help them achieve their goals and their vision and missions as well.
I see. So what does that kind of ideal partner look like for you guys?
Sure. So, our ideal partner would be, well, let me start out by saying what is not. Emergency work is typically not where,
Right.
so it's funny, our team was like, big red flag, no emergency work. Now, of course, in the event of an emergency, we certainly are there for our partners. But it really is that somebody that appreciates teamwork and collaboration. So, for I guess a better way to say this, or maybe not such a politically correct way to say it, but we're not looking for somebody that is just price fixed. We are looking for somebody that understands the value that our SimTech team brings to the table. So if you're looking for, to be the cheapest person on the street, that's not us. And we are aware of that. We feel very confident in the value that we bring to the table for our partners with the quality of work and the collaboration that we are able to showcase through our SimTech way. So our ideal partner really can be in any industry. It's if they align and understand the value that we bring to the table for them.
So I would imagine, I guess, more functionally speaking, we're talking about maybe more complex assemblies and components, things that are going to require some of your engineering capabilities and things like that. I'm just trying to understand a little bit more physically speaking, like what type of project, would be ideal for you.
Yeah, and so it's hard to really hone in, because we've worked on projects that range from a 18-foot tall glass crushing system with a 30-foot long conveyor
Wow.
that the idea was conceptualized, and our engineering team was able to put the product together, the actual mechanism together, and then because of our machining and fabrication capabilities, we were able to manufacture it, to
Wow.
production support, whether that's with automotive or within appliances, and helping to understand when I say production support, they have a problem with producing, whether that's ergonomics or whether that's with efficiency, or they broke a piece and they don't have a print for it, or I mean,
Yeah.
it just, the list goes on and on
Right.
as far as the production support that we
Right.
can provide. And then that's just one vertical on that production support. You look at the production side of things, and to your point, Nate, yes, the more complex components, precision machining, the quality of work, the tighter tolerances, and that includes on fabrication as well, because we have the parameters and the quality assurance set in place on the precision machining side. That's one thing that we're able to bring to the table, is that we're able to hold tighter tolerances with the fabrication, the laser informing. And so uh, it's really hard to say one
Yeah.
specific area that we are targeting. The joke of our sales engineer is, there's nothing we can't make but a baby, and nothing we can't fix but a broken heart. And he's pretty accurate. I mean, like, there's
Yeah. No, it's a huge range of capability. Just list off. So you've got, full scale machining, 5-axis, you've got turning, you've got fabrication, laser cutting. What all do you have?
Yep. So CNC side, of course, we've got our CNC saws to our mills, lathes. We were one of the first Indiana companies to actually get a microdynamics. CNC is American made.
Okay.
And when we saw it, it was milling out a titanium kneecap for knee replacement on the showroom floor. We were like, we have to have that. It can hold a 1 micron tolerance. Now my
Wow.
QC guy would kick my ass if we publicly started
Advertise that
promoting
tolerance. Yeah.
the 1 micron. But then we do have wire sinkers, EDMs to our laser informing capabilities. We just purchased a Trump 1030 fiber laser, can cut up to 1 inch thick. Of course, your stainless carbon aluminum to our PC. We enhance PC controls on our brake press, shears, ironworkers. Honestly, our listing of equipment is quite eccentric,
Hmm.
and truly that's by virtue of working with these partners that we've had for many years,
Yeah.
and of course through acquisition of the two additional firms. But I mean, it is by virtue, we have grown by virtue of, oh, well, you already do this. Can you do this?
Hmm.
And that really has been a lot of how we've obtained and retained our customer and partner base.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's way above average in terms of overall capabilities. I mean, I'm impressed when a machine shop also can do some welding and fabrication work. Um, so that's pretty awesome. And I can understand how you would allow a lot of these companies to kind of consolidate their supply chain into one facility as opposed to having to ship it from, one guy to the next. Um, yeah, very impressive. What would you say the biggest change in SimTech has been since you took it over? Like from the day that, it was sold to you to today?
Well, Jared and I are both big sports fans, and with any sports team, you can't have a team of all one position, right? You need all the
Hmm.
positions in order to become a championship level team. We established that we've got the same common goals and mission, which is to be the manufacturer that manufacturers rely on. We have a team of fantastic experts and certainly skilled craftsmen and women across a myriad of our elements. And what Jared and I really bring to the table, I believe, is that there's no one person above or below the team. And so you mentioned that, yes, I refer to myself as a team member. Well, all of our team members are team members. We don't use the word employee at all within our organization. So if you were to ask me how many employees do we have, my answer is going to be no, zero, none. We we have team members, so everything that we do is led first by being a team member, and then may recognize your role or your job description based off of that. So honestly, I believe that the biggest change, again, we had fantastic foundations, and of course we're continuing to innovate with the capabilities and enhance our capabilities and increase our capacity, but it is that culture of a team mentality. So everybody is willing to jump in. Everybody is willing to collaborate. It's not I say do this, so you do it. It is actually a team first led mentality.
Right. Yeah, and you see a lot of companies that kind of have that terminology. They use it in their email signatures and stuff like that. It's one thing to say; it's another thing to do it. How do you kind of, I don't know if enforce is the right word, but how do you foster this, and how does it kind of how does it manifest itself in daily interactions, or what do you physically do different?
Yeah, so and that was the one of the pieces, so here we come in and here's this banker and this industrial sales guy, what are they bringing to the table? And so it truly did lead first with, we changed the business cards, we changed the email signature lines, and then we recognized and started introducing ourselves as team members. So that was one aspect of it. And then, truthfully, Nate, what we did to embrace the culture was to showcase, like, we were willing to roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty. And whether that was cleaning bathrooms, which we did and we will still do, to actually learning how from our team to run production on machines or to understand each aspect of the position and let our teammates guide that and coach us. And so it was the egos checked at the door. And
Mhm.
we said this, but to your point, you can say anything you want, but it's just lip service until you see it in execution. And our team has caught us from making mistakes. They've had a seat at the table when it comes time to purchase equipment, or even from an acquisition standpoint. I mean, we are pulling our entire team in. When we say it's family owned and team operated, we truly mean that. The team is part of the decision making that happens.
Mhm. Um, and as far as, and once again, if you call someone a team member, what you're always looking for as a business owner is you're looking for someone to take a level of ownership that at least vaguely mirrors your own, which is a big ask. A lot of companies kind of utilize the employee ownership scenario and things like that. Do you have kind of a financial way that you reinforce this team mentality?
Yes, we do. So, part of our team package or overall compensation package, if you will, is based off of our core values. And again, being a team member, being a good team member is the largest one. And so, our team is incentivized by it's a cash incentive plan that they receive quarterly based off of those metrics.
Okay, off of their own personal evaluation.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, interesting. Um, is that a substantial part of their compensation, or is it? I'm just trying to
It's
help
in
other people
in
model
Yep.
this if it works.
Yeah, it's in it. It's in addition to, and so we've got our, we have our core values again: safety, quality of work, which is going to be contingent upon what your role is, and then being a good team member. So dependable, accountable, coachable, and showing initiative. And those rankings get um, get evaluated on a quarterly basis by Jared and myself, and then brush through our leadership team as well. So that is in addition to the other perks that they get, which of course is going to be we do offer a direct primary care health plan,
Hmm.
which is kind of not necessarily heard of these days in this market, but insurance is certainly a hot topic.
Yeah.
And we're in year 2 of that. So keeping them healthy, again, back to that safety portion, access to those resources. And then the one that I'm really most proud of that we had implemented right when we had purchased SimTech was flex time. Because life happens. And so you hear a lot about a work life balance or a work life blend. And this is pre COVID. And obviously, in manufacturing, you can't work remotely
Right.
in most cases. But we said, in life, shit happens and we should be flexible. You should have a place that you will allow that flexibility. And while people thought we were crazy, we actually increased productivity by offering this. And all we asked for was communication. So we set some parameters up between first and second shift. Everybody's a big boy and a big girl and can count to the hours that they need to work within a weekly time slot. And then, if you need to go to the dentist and take an extra long lunch, or if you want to take your spouse to lunch, or in the moments of, okay, there's a snow delay and so I can't get my kids to school on time, we offer that flexibility. And that's been a huge piece. It's not easily quantified, but
Yeah.
certainly as part of that package that we offer.
So how do you describe it? Like, is there a certain amount of time each week that they could theoretically, like, how does that work?
Yep. So, as mentioned, all we ask for is communication. So each team member really works with our general manager and our office manager to kind of pick their typical schedule, and I use air quotes typical.
Right.
And then once their typical schedule is picked for the week, in the event that something comes up, they have the opportunity within that pay period, which our weeks run from Wednesday to Tuesday, to make up that time. So depending upon, if it's a large gap of 4 hours that needs made up, they have X amount of time to be able to make it up. Since our manufacturing facility now is on one campus under one roof, it does help quite a bit. It was a bit challenging there when we were operating in two states. With two different sets of hours and
Right.
shifts. And so we are open from 6 a.m. Until 2 a.m. Monday through Thursday. And then Fridays, 6 a.m. till 3 p.m. So it allows them to make up that time with that
I see.
crossover.
I
Which
see.
which then breeds, when you think about it, more collaboration amongst the teams and amongst the shifts, and so that's it's been great to be able to offer that, as well as the additional crossover training that we have. And those are all things that we put a big emphasis on, that
Mm.
really has come from that flex time.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think also you can kind of see how maybe if you're working on something and you're in a good groove, you can spend a little bit of extra time on it, and then that you could use that time at a future point.
Yeah.
Does it
Yes.
work like that?
Yeah. You could. Yep. Absolutely. You could kind of bank it if necessary.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So with your acquisitions, you said there's two of them. What was the focus of those acquisitions, and where are you hoping it takes you?
Well, truly, when we looked at the capabilities that the other two entities offered, so that would be Access Machine and Tool in Action Material Handling. They were capabilities that SimTech maybe possessed, but more often than not didn't have the ability to possess those. Whether that was one-off tool crib items or prototyped items, to your actual large scale fabrication and material handling. So when we looked at the acquisition from a sheer capability standpoint, that made a lot of sense. You take it a step further and look at it from a customer base. There was no crossover as far as customer base, or if there were crossover, it was crossover but in a different vertical. So
Mm.
for example, there was crossover within one large partner of Cimtech's. Cimtech only had worked with them on the precision machining side and some subassembly, whereas Action Material Handling had worked with them on the larger scale fabrication and material handling capabilities.
I
So
see.
when we looked at each of those entities in their own right, they were 30-plus-year-old companies. They too had a good reputation. And honestly, it was one of that kind of perfect marriage between the capabilities and then to be able to increase the capacity on all ends.
I see. And so when you made these acquisitions, so I assume that with the machining company, you already knew you could take on this new piece of business from an existing customer for SimTech. Were you thinking of it in terms of they already had, steady revenue? You knew you could kind of operationally manage these businesses and increase revenue for your core business, or were you thinking this will allow us to go out in the marketplace and get a different type of customer?
Both. So yes, we could expand on our capabilities, and because SimTech had the processes in place that we could expand what they were already doing in the marketplace.
Okay.
And so I think that was one element, and then to think bigger and more futuristically, yes, it was to be able to acquire more of the market share within a myriad of industries or verticals.
Got it. Okay. So with these very extensive capabilities, a lot of these machines are going to need somebody that has a pretty good level of expertise to run them. But imagine you have quite a few employees running different machines. How are you looking at the kind of aging workforce situation and trying to set yourself up for success, knowing that some of these older guys that have the knowledge are going to be leaving the company?
Sure, sure. And that certainly was was and will remain something an area of opportunity. I believe, it's workforce challenges. You hear that often. You hear that a lot within industry. With the To address your first part of the question, with the aging workforce and how do you tap into that historical or tribal knowledge and pass that down to the next generation. We accomplish that by the cross training plans that we have in place. We continually participate in what we call in Indiana the next level training, which we have built a pretty extensive between and across all of our departments cross training. We believe firmly in
Okay.
cross training. Each of our team members believes in it. In fact, several of our master machinists are, in fact, fabricators or started out as fabricators.
Okay.
And vice versa. So we believe at the core of what we do that it's imperative that we're cross training, and that's not going to stop. So we make sure that we build time for each of our teammates. They each have their own individual development plans in which they can kind of pick and choose. So there's not necessarily just one linear path for each person.
Right. Right.
And I think that's very important, that individualized plan. One, it helps the company, obviously, but two, for each of our teammates, they're not capped per se on the ability for them to keep growing. We want them to grow with us.
Yep.
Two, the bringing the next generation along. That is a huge, huge focus, has been, will continue to be. We are connected with a multitude of organizations, including vocational schools, to your post-secondary educations, to even just our partners within the workforce industry that are doing, second chance careers, or even looking outside the box. We are extremely connected, and as a second chance employer, we believe in that and always
Mm.
have and always will. So that being said, it's that thinking outside the box. We preach this a lot to other manufacturers within our area. That we've got a ton of resources in Southern Indiana and the Louisville, Kentucky area, and we have strategically aligned ourselves by sitting on those advisory councils. The instructors themselves are intimately familiar with SimTech's capabilities. We participate in micro internships, apprenticeships, you name the ship, we're doing it within SimTech, and we believe very firmly that that is going to continue to lead to our success.
So those internships and apprenticeships have been good for you. You've been able to adequately, staff just through that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and with intent. Again, I know our or your viewership is certainly outside of necessarily the Southern Indiana scope, but just kind of paint a picture of what we have in Southern Indiana. We have a gym in what's called Prosser's Vocational School, and it ranges not just in manufacturing, but cosmetology, aviation,
Mm-hmm.
nursing, dental hygiene, culinary, you
Yep.
name it. As far as SimTech goes, over 80% of our team members either graduated through that program traditionally or non-traditionally, because they do
Oh,
open it up to higher education. So, I mean, that's a pretty staggering
yeah.
number when you hear that.
Yeah.
More specifically, our team gives back sitting on those advisory councils, whether it's automation and robotics, to your drafting and CAD, to your machining and fabrication and welding departments. So when I say we're locked in with their instructors are actually from industry, which I think makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And they know the SimTech culture and the SimTech way. So and part of their curriculum is that these students will go into a shop and do a job shadow their junior year, do a micro internship their senior year, and then they get out and have the ability to co-op and work. And that is a prime opportunity to get students in, to train them, get them a feel for what it's like in the real world, and whether we're helping them individually, setting them on that career path, or we're lucky enough to retain them and bring them into the fold full-time post-graduation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm amazed that it's working that well. Because every region has its tech schools, and in some case even manufacturing specific programs like that. But in I think a lot of manufacturers get onesies, twosies from there, but certainly not 80%, which, obviously, like you said, is a factor of you being involved in guiding the curriculum and making sure that these individuals are being kind of built in the way that you need them. But I'm also curious what their recruitment strategy is, and if some of these other trade schools in our area even could be leveraging some of that. Like, how are they getting so many kids interested?
I think it's breaking that misconception that vocational school is honestly for the kids that aren't college bound. I mean,
Right, like a second
I
choice.
think at the yes, I think it starts there. And then it's getting in front of them at even the age of, I mean, K through
I agree.
but
I agree. Yeah.
8. And so that's been a large piece of it is putting that spotlight on, look at this school. So our vocational school feeds in, I believe it's 22 or 26 local high schools around, and it actually feeds onto a campus as for their junior and their senior year. And then the additional pieces that they're doing is they are showcasing to the students, even K through 8, um, and their parents, which I think is the biggest piece, the
Right.
options that they have
Yep.
from going through there. So you have the community partners like your SimTechs that are coming to their option days so that they understand this is the type of place that they would go and work. And then, oh, look at the type of place where their average tenure is 20 years, and look at all the nice cars in the parking lot. Like it's
Yeah.
putting food on the table, and there's multi-generational families that work here. So I think it really is breaking that misconception. And then
Mhm.
to your point on how are they telling the story and recruiting, and I really firmly believe that that industry expert being the instructor in the school, of course they have their academic curriculum, that's at the core, but running it truly like what it's like in the workplace. When I what I mean by that is the machine shop instructor specifically does his academic curriculum, but he starts his juniors out by saying, "All right, we're opening up a machine shop. If this is our shop, this is where we're going to start at the base." And then he will have them work in tandem or within pairs. He will also have them communicate verbally what is happening, not just to sit down and do your academic portion,
Right.
in written form, but forcing that communication,
Mm.
building that confidence. And I really think that is where the magic happens within that within Prosser specifically programs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like everything is being put together correctly. And I know that I've heard pieces of this going on, but it doesn't seem like it's all working together as well. I'm very interested in what you said about getting kids interested as early as, even kindergarten, which I completely agree. In most cases, we're doing it too late. Like we're introducing high school kids to these concepts and their parents. But if we could start when they're watching, like my daughter's 5 years old, she's watching Blippy, start then and make manufacturing look cool. Like how cool it is to build things in this high tech machinery and robotics and all this really neat stuff. Um, it's almost like you need some sort of like television programming that would be focused on it. But like, how are you guys introducing these concepts to kindergarten level kids?
Yeah, so and we participate quite often with a lot of the local schools, and even with Jared and I having two young daughters. As mentioned, I was pregnant with our youngest one. She's now 9, so she just celebrated our SimTech's 50-year anniversary at SimTech Day, and it was funny because the team was like, "Oh my gosh, she was just toddling around like it feels
Mm-hmm.
like yesterday."
Yeah.
Um, but to answer your question, I think it goes back to the start of what I said. Everything that we do as a consumer, anything that we do or touch comes from a manufacturer. And so one
Mm-hmm.
of my favorite things to do from like a show and tell standpoint, because more often than not, I can't necessarily carry some of the items that we're making to show
Right.
and tell, but I start to ask them, Okay, how many of you have ever went and got a fountain drink out of, out of the gas station, or went to a McDonald's and gotten a fountain drink? And they'll start to raise their hand. I'm like, well, what do you have to push to get out the fountain drink? And they're like, the little lever. I'm like, okay, well, that's called a sanitation lever, and we make those at SimTech. And so it's to kind of start to connect the dots on like, okay, these everyday things that I'm doing, but how cool is that? That's produced right down the street, or
Yeah.
my parents work on that. Or another example, a railroad crossing where the big railroad arms come across the train tracks, and we talk through about some of the components and the parts that we're making there. So it kind of starts at the core of like getting them curious
Right.
on like how is it made and how am I getting these luxuries as a consumer. But then it also gets them thinking like, okay, that's a prideful point. Like these are made, like think about how many manufacturers it makes to make all of these things, and then it
Mhm.
just kind of goes from there. So I
Yeah.
that's how that's the approach that we've taken, both internally with our team, because I do think that was another ad that Jared and I were able to bring to the team was like, okay, yes, you come to work every day, but look at the impact you're making. It's pretty
Yeah.
damn cool when you think
Yeah.
about where all of this stuff is going,
Right.
um, to the younger generation, and getting them to think through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even getting the word manufacturing into their psyche, even helping them understand what it is in the first place. Because I mean, it's amazing how few, even adults, I was just talking to a machinist, older guy that was like, he's like 20 years ago, you could talk to the, cashier at the grocery store and, tell her that you're a tool and die guy and she would know what it is. These days nobody knows what it is, and so like somehow it's just kind of fallen out of our cultural discourse. So I think that would even be part of the battle, is just helping them understand generally what manufacturing is and what it makes. So yeah, that's very interesting. um, so the last question I had for you was related to kind of the future of manufacturing, and what are some of the technologies or robotics or automation strategies do you see on the horizon that you kind of want to bring into your facilities? What are you kind of working towards in that end of things?
Yeah, so it would certainly be on the quality side, and just automating and continuing to innovate on the quality controls that we have already in place. But how are ways that we can make that more efficient? How are ways that we can eliminate some of the bottlenecks at our quality or inspection points? So that really is where our emphasis and our focus is, driving into the future. Along the same lines of innovation. And I think one of the neatest stories that SimTech has, or the best showcase of what SimTech is able to provide, is being the solution provider to manufacturing problems. So SimTech just went patent pending this past July on the double barrel lifter. And so, just as it sounds, lifts two barrels, whether empty or full, simultaneously. How this innovation had developed was actually a partner of ours back in 2021 needed to move barrels more efficiently and ergonomically and safely for their teammates. And so our engineering team designed, and then our fabrication and machining team created a double barrel lifter, which is a power source extension. So it can be hooked to any fork truck, skid steer, any power source, be it
Okay.
hydraulic, pneumatic, or electric.
Okay.
And put one in production and didn't think twice about it. So that was 4 years ago. Well, and again, just a shining example of the collaboration. It's still out in at their facility, still being used every day. Its durability has been phenomenal. But when two additional places, their parent company as well as an outside partner of our customers, saw it on their floor working, they said, "Oh my gosh, where did you get that?" And so they
Yeah.
called SimTech. So next thing you know, we send four over to Scotland. We've got a few that are domestically with some big name brands, and that was kind of the kick in the butt that was like, okay, maybe we're onto something. So
Yeah.
began to do some more market research, and found that there is nothing that is as durable or as comparable to what we have. And so we are working to commercialize that and hopefully
Wow.
get that in the hands while we continue to innovate it. There's additional design features that we keep coming up with to increase that, but it really, when you think about who SimTech is, and particularly along the lines of providing solutions to manufacturers, I think that's a perfect example. And with us sitting right here in Bourbon Country with the barrels, I think
Yeah.
that was a fun one to be working on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that is really cool. What a niche thing, but it's just amazing, you know. And I encourage manufacturers all the time to, you have the capabilities, you know, you're doing it for other people. Find your own idea, make your own product, and use that to kind of diversify your business and have, you know, bring that product directly to the marketplace instead of, you know, obviously just working as a contract manufacturer. So very good that you're doing that. And I would assume there's probably more ideas that'll be developed down the road.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We hope it doesn't stop there, and that's really where our phase two and phase three expansion plan on our campus. We hope that continues to grow on that side of it.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Jessica, amazing business you built there, you and your husband. You know, it's really cool to hear about the culture that you built and how you're actually putting into action and it's making a difference. And yeah, just wish you the best success and hope we get to chat some more.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome.